Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Saving the World podcast with Luke Macmichael and Martin Rezny. Today, we're going to be talking about something very dear to me, very close to my heart, Magic the Gathering. If you're not aware of the game or familiar with it, it's one of the most popular tabletop competitive games that's kind of built out of Dungeons and Dragons and some of those fantasy style of games. That's one of the biggest and most popular fantasy card games in the world. It's been around for 33 years, I believe now. I've been playing for 31 since I was 13 years old, and it's been a great part of my life, so I'm very interested or excited to share that with you a little bit today and to talk about one of their latest sets as it ties in with our Saving the World theme and mantra. One of the latest sets entitled Phyrexia, All Will Be One, which talks about a machine organization or a machine-based organization that's essentially conquering the multiverse. And if you know anything about Magic, it's all about combining all the fantasy themes of wizards and witchcraft and goblins and orcs and dwarves and humans and all these things from all various planes of existence. And it kind of combines all the multiverse, all the different fantasies of many different things. Of course, focused on Lord of the Rings as well as another set we'll talk a little bit about maybe if we have time. But it brings all these things together into a kind of a beautiful world based on the colors of Magic: red, blue, black, white, and green, and all the intricacies and things that go with all of that. So we'll touch on all of them a little bit today. We can only kind of scratch the surface, but we're going to have a great time just sharing our feelings on why these things are important, why Magic is important, and specifically Magic the Gathering and the card game and the effect it's had on our world and our personal world as well as the world at large, and how it can help us understand our goals for saving the world and coming together in some ways to make the world a better place. So all that being said, long intro. Martin, I'd like to just turn it over to you for a bit. What's your feeling of Magic the Gathering and specifically this set, Phyrexia, All Will Be One?
I mean, Phyrexia, Resistance is Futile. Oh no, it's wrong franchise.
That's the Borg.
Yeah, it's like I guess I will start with like maybe like the worst thing you could say about Magic the Gathering. I actually start with that. Is that it's like derivative, sort of like very on principle, because like you said, it's like sort of based on or like related to everything in fantasy. It's sort of like adapting all of the planes, but that's like at the same time, it's sort of it's doing it in a way that I think, at least to me, is sort of very fascinating, and that's like the added value is like I think the whole idea of like how they're doing the multiverse, because I think like today it's very popular to be trying to do the multiverses in various series of movies from like particularly with comic books, but I think like it's actually very difficult to do it right. And Magic the Gathering, I think, is maybe the best franchise in my opinion in terms of like how well they realized the idea of a multiverse, because they basically did it so much that they call a different universe a plane, and the main characters are actually those characters who can travel between planes, the so-called planeswalkers, which I think is like a super cool concept. Especially, it's supposed to be, I think, sort of let's say how the person, the player, should be feeling. It's like feeling like I am the planeswalker walking across all of these various planes in the multiverse. But like what it does, I think, effectively is that this is how you can actually draw from every single fantasy that anybody ever thought of, or even science fiction to some extent. Especially in some of the newer sets, like the age of the planes is getting a little bit more modern. Like and the Phyrexia, of course, is like outright futuristic in a way. As far as fantasy goes, it's like more of a like a science fantasy almost, and that's also partially why it sort of works like as the villains in the sort of like more idyllic, sort of more Lord of the Rings inspired rest of the planes, pretty much. So for me, like the whole idea is great, and I think it's like the one of the best realizations of the whole concept of the multiverse ever. And I'm just personally, it's one of those things where like, why don't they make a movie or a show or something? Because when they do, like their little sort of videos for the sets, they're usually pretty good. Especially like when they did like an anime for the Kamigawa, which is like a Japanese mythology inspired one, like the Neon Dynasty, which was also, I guess, the most modern so far, which was basically cyberpunk. And it sort of still sort of works. So sort of you can have like a cyber samurai fighting now a character from Lord of the Rings, and it works. It's somehow like not just mechanically within the rules of the world, but also within their just whole mythology. It just still somehow computes. Like it's sort of one of the things I always wanted to do was just make like a modern set. But what I mean by that is that like there's like a program you can use to generate your own cards, your own designs, and so just do it like as like a political science exercise for like modern politics. So like you can just do, I don't know, we were just joking around things like what would George Bush be, like George W. Bush, like uh probably like some sort of like a red black, some sort of a goblin king thing, like if you wanted to translate it into like by the rules mechanically, like what kind of fantasy creature it would be similar to mechanically, to like from a different plane. And then you could have like a war, but not in like Iraq, but like American invasion into the Shire or something, and you could just like play that scenario. So I guess that's what the Phyrexians also kind of like to do, because they, in this current set, it's sort of the way I understand it, it was sort of a little bit before my time, like the whole beginnings of that saga. So maybe you could then say something about like how it all started. But like just for now, for me, the Phyrexians at this point in the All Will Be One sets basically are just invading all of the planes because they somehow found a way to sort of convert everywhere to Phyrexia. So now, especially in this set, and then in the March of the Machine, which is sort of realization of that after all, Phyrexia All Will Be One. So it's completing this whole thing. It's like what I especially like. It's like a lot of planes interacting. So it's like right now, it's basically the whole multiverse is involved in this kind of thing, and everyone's interacting. And like I just find it fascinating. But like, but how did it all start? Because I sort of wasn't there at the beginning.
There's a lot of great history, and I'm very much looking forward to the very first blockbuster Magic movie. I think part of the reason they haven't done it is because there's just so much there. There's so much to tell that they could never really do it justice. And maybe as things get cheaper, AI could create these movies for us much more cheaply and inexpensively. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Quick, just a little bit of history of Magic. So it all started on the plane of Dominaria. Was kind of the first original sets when they were still building the lore around it all. And it was just a plane that kind of had a lot of wizards, but we call them planeswalkers, but there's also wizards and sorcerers that are kind of lower level planeswalkers that haven't quite mastered the spark to travel dimensions or planes yet. But basically the whole world is a fantasy world similar to Lord of the Rings. And the history there is that about 5,000 years ago there was a big war between the Thran, which were an ancient race that were artificers, and they basically were magic users that kind of discovered magic through the art of creating artifacts and creating things that kind of would tap into the land and tap into the essence and the power around us, similar to how we're today tapping into fusion technology or nuclear technology to build new science. So the essence of magic at its core is just understanding the world in a better way, learning things about the world, how you can tap into it and make energy from nothing or create magic from nothing. So that was the kind of the historical concept. And the Thran had a huge war where some of them kind of over relied on their artifacts and others kind of wanted to try to outlaw some of them because they were getting too dangerous. So one of these Thran guys, his name was Yawgmoth, basically became kind of evil and tried to conquer everybody. And the rest of them obviously wanted to stop it, so they banished him to his own plane. He created an artificial plane called Phyrexia. And that was his, that's where kind of Phyrexia started. And the Thran essentially banned him off, but in the war, they kind of started to outlaw magic. They outlawed artifacts, and a lot of them kind of died off. And basically, there was a 5,000-year period where there wasn't a lot of magic in the world. It was kind of a dark ages of various kinds. So there's a ton of lore that's just kind of created through that dark period. And the beginning of magic kind of starts with a guy named Urzra and his brother Mishra, who basically discover these Thran artifacts from 5,000 years ago, kind of unearth them and start tinkering with them and start understanding again the magic. They start exploring. So might want to compare that to maybe ancient civilizations like the built the pyramids, or maybe ancient alien civilizations. It's very similar.
Yeah, assuming they had some sort of advanced tech that can be unearthed in the modern day and start like a new technological.
It's like an Atlantis concept, right? So my point is it's extremely similar to what our real world scenario is. Urzra and Mishra are unearthing this advanced tech, starting to understand it, and starting to understand how magic works so they can kind of tap into it. And magic at its core, it's really just about having this energy within you to kind of manifest something, either summon some kind of orc or summon some kind of underling to do your bidding, which we kind of have in the way of hiring people or enslaving people. But at the same time, you're summoning them from some kind of plane or portal, and then you're controlling them in some way, or you're summoning a fireball or a lightning bolt or anything. You're basically controlling the essence of the mana, which is the essence of the land and the world around them, and they're using that mana to cast spells and summon creatures.
Yeah,
So anyway,
actually,
Earth Mission figured out how
just regarding the mana, like, and the modern magic, like we figured out that in real world, in real life, we do have black mana, and the black mana is oil. Because it's
exactly
like
right.
concentrated dead things that, like the normal way you would do it, white mana is just solar energy, of course, solar power. But if that's not enough for you, or for whatever reason, then you like dig into the ground for the dead things, which is the black oily substance. That then, if you burn it, you get energy, but also you're polluting and killing the environment if you're using it. So we just do have perfect embodiment of black mana in the real world.
Yeah, and we have to talk a little bit about the color wheel at this point, just to understand. So you've got the black for anything kind of destructive, necromancy, dark energy, dark power, and then you've got the red to the next of it, which is kind of related to black, and they're all kind of connected in this wheel. Red is like fire, volcano, the power of energy, and of course we use a lot of that for our energy as well. Anything that creates fire, oil creates fire, and so on. And that's like your dragons are basically all your red guys. And then you have green, which is nature. Again, you can burn nature to make fire, and it's kind of connected. And nature is all the plants and animals and monstrous beasts. A lot of big, powerful beasts in nature, whether they're lions or tigers or dinosaurs or whatever it might be. And then you've got white, which is the color of organizations and civilization and kind of law and order.
And religion, right?
Religion as well, yeah, because religion is kind of a way of kind of creating order from beliefs. It's kind of a faith-based system. So almost everything in society is kind of based on that religious system of believing that society is going to work for you, and the social contract. Really, that's what the color white is all about. That order and that social contract. But it also leads to bad things in the way of over control and enslaving each other in some cases. Taking away freedoms because you have so many rules and regulations. So it's really interesting when you think of white's not necessarily good. There's lots of bad things.
Well, I think, but also like the other ones aren't necessarily bad. Like red is about freedom and self-expression. So like you'll always find like the most difficult one to find anything good on is black, obviously.
Yes.
But even there, some of the characters that are black characters were ultimately at least anti-heroes. That their self-interest was actually what was needed to help the greater good, just particularly if the order was evil. Like if like the white was evil in a world, then the black one is almost necessarily less evil because it's in opposition to white.
Everything needs a counterbalance, right? There's always a pendulum, and black serves a very important role to just inspire people to kind of upset the pendulum, and maybe for self-interest, greed in some ways has a purpose in the world. And it's very interesting understanding that wheel and kind of pulling it all together and figuring out, where do I fit?
There's still blue.
Yeah, so the last one is blue. So the blue in my mind is my favorite. I've always been a blue wizard, a blue sorcerer, and it's about intelligence, control, logic, thought, and it's the water color. Obviously, where the water's, it's in your island or on your big tower in your on your isolated island where you're kind of isolated from the world in a little way, and you're just trying to understand everything.
But also the sky, more so than any other color.
Correct. Yeah. So sky, islands, world, water. But merfolk and all these other things, they all fit into blue in a very good way. And the thing that I enjoy most about blue is just that it's really about understanding all the other colors and all the other mechanics and the entire universe. It's really about trying to make sense of everything, and just trying to make sense of that color wheel and see how that actually applies in each one of us. We all have colors inside of us. We all have these emotions inside of us. And it's just a matter of which emotion is kind of prominent at any given time, and which one do we want to control.
Yeah, but also, like, speaking of emotion, that's sort of the downside of blue, or like the way it can be unethical is if it gets emotionless and gets sort of uncaring, and particularly like some sort of like wizards who do experiments that are questionably ethical just to learn more, because like knowledge is the most important thing. And I think that's part of the sort of a problem with Phyrexia. Particularly, it's like Phyrexia feels to me more like blue-black most of the time, even though it has its own all of the spheres, all of the sort of color variations of itself. But to me, like the new set is it's not like I'm saying the new set, but like the trick is Recently, the Wizards of the Coast, which is the company who created or creates Magic the Gathering, is pumping out the sets at like very rapid rate. So by the time we get to talk about something like Phyrexia, all will be one. There's like 2 sets that were published in the meantime. So just to make it clear, afterwards there was March of the Machine, which sort of concluded the whole arc of the Phyrexia for now. And then they also managed to publish the Lord of the Rings set, because they sometimes now do even sort of like sets and cards from specific fictional universes, because it's sort of important
Crossovers.
distinction. They most of the time do their own versions of various tropes and archetypes and lore from mythology and history and fantasy. So that technically, but still are their own modifications of those, so that they're their own. But now they also sometimes license rights to various other things. I think the other thing that they recently did some cards from was Warhammer 40k, if I'm not mistaken. So now, but there was like even crazier things. Like they do more and more now. They do even like from Stranger Things. Like you have some like cards. It's not like a whole set. Like the Lord of the Rings, the new set is pretty big for a licensed thing. Usually it's just a smaller, like a deck or 2 decks worth of cards. So right now in the Phyrexia, all will be one. Like for me, the feel is blue-black mainly. Is that it's sort of like or I guess maybe I think the most compelling sphere of the Phyrexian spheres is the blue one, which is basically they have like a big hellish laboratory where they're just trying to invent new horrible ways how to learn more and be more efficient. And that's why I sort of joked with the Borg. I think like the closest parallel that it must be drawing something from is the Borg from Star Trek, because it's also like a kind of a hive mind. Even though there are strong personalities who lead the individual spheres, who have some autonomy, I think the sort of ultimate control of the whole thing is very collectivized, and the minions are not supposed to think for themselves. But that's also why I think they chose as the main villain Elesh Norn, which is their white character. So it's like sort of the epitome of, like you were talking about, the evil order.
Absolutely. So let me just really quickly, I'll go faster on the history. So Urzra and Mishra had this big battle, and they had called the Brothers' War. Lots of story there, lots of fun. But
also one of the new sets.
Also one of the newer sets. But that's been kind of the core of Magic history, was always started with Urzra and Mishra. They started kind of, everything came after that. So they had a multi-decade battle where they basically opened the portal to Phyrexia, and fought each other, banished Mishra to Phyrexia. He was the red-black brother, and Urzra was the white-blue brother, essentially, and had basically brought the whole world of Dominaria into ruins. There was a huge battle, and then Yawgmoth came through the portal back from Phyrexia after 5,000 years of exile. Basically corrupted Mishra and used him to kind of get back into Dominaria. So there's a whole ton of story there. Long story short, about 3,000 years later, Urzra basically lived for 3,000 years as a planeswalker, trying to plan on how to defeat Yawgmoth and Phyrexia again. And this was some of the early sets of Magic from 20 and 30 years ago. So they spent a long time trying to fight and win that war, and he finally did. He had to kind of sacrifice his life, but in so doing, he created another plane called Mirrodin, which was another artificial plane. Basically was supposed to be pure and kind of to combat the dirtiness of Phyrexia in some ways, right? And make it a pure artificial plane, for the good of all the planes, I guess. And he had this weapon named Karn that was kind of became the first sentient artificial life form that actually became a planeswalker on his own. And he was kind of the founder of Mirrodin. So after Urzra left, Karn kind of kept the legacy going and kept Phyrexia in check, kind of banished them, and kept fighting the endless war, I guess, against the machines of Phyrexia. So, of course, fast forward another couple hundred or 1,000 years, and Mirrodin is all of a sudden starting to get shades of Phyrexia and shades of I guess, corruption kind of set in various ways. And there was a whole bunch of sets and stories around that, how that kind of evolved. So the new Phyrexia is actually Mirrodin became new Phyrexia, essentially. And then there was a whole bunch of battles there about new Phyrexia. And then the Paraders, which there's one for each color. Elesh Norn, Vorinclex is the green Praetor, black is Shaladrid, red is Urabrask, and the blue one is Jin-Kataxis. Probably one of my favorites.
No idea how to pronounce that.
Jin-Kataxis.
Too much J's and G's and X's in that.
Yeah. Anyway, so all 5 of the Praetors were essentially the embodiment of their color in an artificial way. They were all artificial life forms, essentially robots that kind of
And also like
mastered.
embodiments of how that color is evil.
Exactly, and they all kind of started out as kind of evil embodiments. And there's a whole bunch of lore around how each of them started, but they were basically a council, and they all started on Mirrodin, on this new Phyrexia. So basically, Elish Norn took it as her right to combine all the Praetors together in order to unite not just Mirrodin first, which New Phyrexia first, but the entire multiverse. Every single plane of existence should be united under the good of the machines. The
Yeah,
marks of
that's
the
how the great future starts, when you put first in there somewhere. So it's like mirrored in first, and then what do you mean like first? You mean like everybody else will be conquered later, probably.
Everybody else should be conquered, and that's kind of the concept of the Borg, is that all will be assimilated. Everyone will be better off if we just control everybody and give everybody eternal life by turning them all into machines and make everybody happy. You'll be happy if you just follow
the
me.
most warped white,
Yeah,
by the terminology of Magic the Gathering.
So it's a beautiful story. Basically, all of Magic kind of built up to it over a 30-year period, essentially, and we kind of knocked it down. And the fun part of it is that the heroes. So the heroes are all the Planeswalkers. These are like your Avengers, essentially, where some of my favorite ones are Jace. He's the blue one. Chandra's the red Pyromancer. Nissa's the green one. White has a few different ones, but there's a Johnny, which is like a lion. Kind of speaks to me a little bit because my animal's the lion, Luke the lion. So I like a Johnny.
Like a cat person. Like
Yeah,
every
if you're a cat
fantasy
person.
must have a cat race, I think,
Yeah.
is some sort of rule.
Yeah, and then Gideon is another white one that's just a super buff, super strong soldier type. White's got a lot of soldiers too.
Kind of like the sort of Elspeth, the one that's sort of
Elspeth is-
important by the end of this saga.
Correct. Yeah, Elspeth is the angel planeswalker essentially. So there's a whole bunch of there's hundreds actually, dozens of important ones, hundreds of kind of smaller ones that are all just kind of fighting this battle against Phyrexia at this point. They're all
Yeah, just now how you're describing it, like they should also definitely do at some point Skyrim-like game. That would be awesome.
Yeah. The sky's the limit. There's no limit to what they do. I'm actually really looking forward to an Earth version of Magic the Gathering where they kind of cross over into the real world and show us how actually all these things might
they've
exist
sort
out
of
there.
drawn so much on Earth real mythologies that I'm not sure if it will, like, how it would square with, like, because there's basically like Kaldheim, which is like the Norse pretty much.
Yes.
There's an Egyptian plane.
We
What's
got
the name of the
Egyptian.
Egyptian plane?
The Egyptian one is what is it?
Amonkhet?
The desert plan.
Amonkhet?
Amonkhet, yes.
Right.
Yeah,
So they basically already used a bunch of, and there's a Greek one, Theros.
Theros,
So
and they've
they
got
sort of
Ixalan
used it.
for the dinosaur one, and they've got like a school one, which is a whole bunch of schools.
Yes, so like I'm not sure if they did it like for me. I think they should do contemporary Earth. I'm really sticking by that idea, and so like if just very briefly, like if you apply the colors as a typology of politics on like real Earth right now, then it still like works perfectly because you basically have like I said, like black is oil. So everybody who's like just in it for greed, basically capitalism. Like capitalism is black mostly, I think. That's how we do capitalism right now. So everybody who's doing something for money is black in this world, pretty much. Then you have the white. It's always the most the same across all, maybe except for like perversions like Phyrexia. But like white is basically we have religions that like I guess unless the religions are really evil, then they will be black also. So it's like a white, but that's always like white-black connection with religion in the lore of Magic the Gathering, sort of. But it's mostly like everybody who's in it to like just maintain order and peace and stuff. That's like I think if something like United Nations, like those things would be for sure white. Then you have blue, which is of course the science, because we do have like a modern scientific establishment. So scientists are just the academia is blue for sure. We super have that. But then some are like super literal, like the oil is super literal, but also green, because you have literal green parties who call themselves green parties. Like you have environmentalists who just want to protect all the animals and the environment and stuff.
Yeah,
so like you 100% have the green just down also. And then just what's remaining, red, and red are basically all like rebels and also terrorists, but like everybody's like a freedom fighter.
Yeah, freedom fighters, anarchists, terrorists,
and artists.
Yeah, and
It's the, like
basically,
all the Hollywood would be like combinations of red with something also pretty much to spice it up with something
yeah.
funny in there.
No,
Like
it's definitely there. The stages are built, and it'd be really fun to see how they kind of turn individuals or famous people into certain cards, and I'd love to see it. I'm looking forward to it someday, but who knows? Maybe it's too taboo though. It's too political that they
I
can't do
think they
it.
must do it at some point. I
Yeah,
think it's just like eventually they just will run out of everything else they could do, and that's just the one
well,
thing that will be
the
left to do.
the closest realm to ours is probably Ravnica, which is the whole kind of world of cities essentially, and it's 10 guilds.
Or what's it called? Or the more modern city themed one, New Capenna.
New Capenna, yeah, yeah. Both of those are kind of little similar to Earth in some ways. They're trying to kind of give a picture of what Earth could be like at some point if we had all this kind of magic available and mystery. But you know, they always add that fantasy vibe to it all, and that's what makes it kind of fun is adding the
I
fantasy
guess
vibe.
even if they did Earth, they would just introduce invasions from other planes or some mix-ups so that you would have also the goblins and orcs and what like the races would also be here. It's just
Yeah,
I think the story would have to be how real Earth is dealing with the influx of all the magic stuff.
yeah. It wouldn't be the battle for Middle Earth. It would be the battle for Earth, and that would be kind of fun. That kind of
Battle for Earth, like I basically like invented it, just like thought of it right now. I think like Wizards of the Coast, if you're listening, please do the Battle for Earth.
battle for Earth.
That would be cool.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure someone's thinking about it, but anyway. So, but back to the story. So that that's kind of the wrap up of where we are today, and this is why all will be one Phyrexia is kind of a fun wrap up of everything that came to it. All these planeswalkers work together. Many of them got corrupted at first, but then a few of the heroes, Elspeth and namely Elspeth and Karn, kind of came back again to fight the final battle against the people that he kind of created mistakenly. So he's kind of repenting now and kind of
Well,
turning against
we
his
haven't
creation.
mentioned the corruption thing, which is a big thing. It's called completion, which is basically again like Borg assimilation
Yeah.
on
Basically
Phyrexia.
turning planeswalkers and any individual into kind of a pseudo Borg cyborg kind of thing, where you're basically making them complete. You're helping them out. You're completing them. So
But
that's
like with an
basically the
A,
goal.
it's like it's intentionally spelled differently. It's not complete with just L-E-T. It's like L-E-A-T.
Yeah. Yeah. Their goal is to perfect the universe by making everybody better and more complete. So anyway, it's a great story. Dig into the lore. There's tons of wonderful books and short stories out there if you're interested in the lore and digging deeper. I just love talking about it. I love thinking about it. I just love trying to figure out what my place is in making a world where these kinds of fantasy stories are more prominent and in some ways teach us valuable lessons about how to be better human beings, how to be better at finding our colors, finding our passion. And I think that's the thing that Magic really has to offer the world more than anything else is just to help individuals find their colors, find their purpose,
Yeah, I would just like
and
want to
build from
say
that.
on this in particular, like we talked before the show, there's an academician, I forgot his name right now, but some time ago I wrote an article seriously about how it really works as a color wheel. It really works as like a psychological typology or like a philosophical typology. And I then later realized that there were actually more people who noticed that and wrote serious articles about it. And I think that it's not like even like a just funny or in some sort of trivial sense. It really works. It's like really I think comparable to serious psychological typologies because like in part I think it's sort of they did the homework in creating it because they created it in a way in which ancient typologies of personality were created to add even more like fantasy flavor. I think that's why they do it like let's do it basically like a zodiac or whatever, like using certain principles how these old things were created. And I think that was a good choice because it's sort of this technical reasons why it works, and one of them is that it's holistic, like you said, is a continuum. So you also not just have the 5 colors, but if you do midpoints between colors, it still works. Like you can still say that like a combination of 2 neighboring colors is like, and it will be a different kind of person who basically you could say is not really red or not really black, but really fits a combination of red and black principles. So it's like
Mm,
even if you like go more into detail into the typology, it still works. But
mm.
really, it's like you said, it sort of helps you uh, realize things about yourself. It's I think if you like sort of shift it, like it's like manifestations of the same principles across different planes. So like on one plane is a vampire, you realize through this typology on a different plane is like a banker. And you start seeing sort of like on a metaphorical abstract level is sort of the connection between like what makes you you is your essential intention. And if you're on like a different planes, you would manifest the essential intention in different ways, which is also a very ancient way of thinking about personality, that like people have essence. Like, and the essence is basically the kinds of choices they want to make. It's not something that like they're determined from elsewhere. No. They have will, and their will has quality, and the quality of their will shows through their actions. So you would see that like in this sort of like almost an equation, like a qualitative equation, you would see that like Vampire literally is a banker. If their motivations are exactly the same and they're just using different means to ultimately achieve comparable outcomes. And then you'd see why, like it's like sometimes, like I said, like with the oil, it's super literal, like a sort of like almost like comedically, like exactly directly, it almost sounds magical. Like who would think of normally? Just think about it, like dead dinosaurs that you can sort of turn into magic oil that you can burn for energy. That like the whole thing sounds fantasy, but like oftentimes it's like more abstract, especially with in like the blue sphere, some sphere like that that's more creative or abstract, because then you'd see that like all of the planes would have some sort of wizard who just like cares about uncovering more knowledge and causes a lot of problems because of that. And that's like sort of like the moral message of that. And I think in the ancient times, like they had myths that sort of told those stories, like Pandora's box, that like you have always like sort of like cautionary tale type of story. And here what you can do is like today somebody could say like if it happened like 2000 years ago, or if it's a fantasy story, like how does it connect to me? Like it's just made up nonsense. But if you connect all these planes through this one typology, then you see that it's all the same thing. So it sort of doesn't matter like if it's a fantasy setting or if it's a sci-fi setting or if it's like our world now or in the past or in the future or whatever. Like once you start looking at people through the lens of their qualitative essence, of the quality of their will, then you're just going to see that like how those stories are always telling something real about people. That like the good stories are the stories that are just describing something real that's inside of people that just manifests in different ways. And if you're putting it on a different plane, you're just creating a little bit of distance so that you can recognize a thing maybe that you're doing, that you sort of recognize is maybe bad and maybe you shouldn't be doing it, but only because of the distance.
That's awesome, Martin. I have an important question I just kind of thought about now. So always trying to tie back to how this helps us save the world, obviously, and how, understanding ourselves better, understanding our colors better can help us save the world in a better way. So I just wanted to tie back really quickly each of these colors to kind of a specific pillar. We have our pillars of Protopia. Check out other episodes if you're not familiar with them. But we have 7 right now. We've been kind of adding more. So some of them are obvious. We've got, I guess, controlling pollution would be kind of a green thing.
For sure. Like green-blue, depending on how much technology, or a green-white, depending on how much laws.
Yeah. You've got promoting peace. So this is kind of a white thing, I think.
This is very white, yeah.
We've got preventing poverty. Where do you think that fits in? Would that be a black one?
Depends on the means. Like if we want to do it in some sort of capitalistic manner, markets are handling it by themselves and there's competition and whatever, then you're getting into the black territory, I think.
Yeah.
But if it's by like mandating something that's the same for all, some sort of like a socialist-ish policy, then it's more white.
Interesting. Okay, we'll think about. We'll come back to that one. So then we've got creating purpose. Is this all 5 creating purpose?
Could be, but I think most specifically it would be if it's individual purpose, it's red. If it's sort of a collective purpose, it's white. So it's like white red. I think.
That makes sense. Okay, and then there's also some black there as well. If your purpose is kind of a
could be, but it's just black purpose specifically is not extremely compatible necessarily with our sort of project, but
okay. And then embracing progress is obviously the blue one. It's understanding things better and embracing it and moving forward with it in a smart, intelligent way. And we got sharing truth or providing proof. Would this be blue as well, do you think?
I think white blue. I think because the truth is sort of shifting it into the value territory of like white values.
White blue. And then the last one is promoting prosperity. Do you think this is black as well?
But it would be still spliced, I think. I think it would be another white-black.
White-black. That's kind of the angel. In some ways, vampires are prosperous, right? Even like if they say they're feasting on animals, or
Well,
feasting on
there's
things.
also on some planes, like on Ixalan, they basically have a civilization and religion, and they are white-black vampires.
Yes, yeah. There's a lot of vampires that are white black. In the Soren is the white black planeswalker actually, and he's
Because like Yuka doesn't even have to be a strictly evil vampire.
no, yeah. Vampires don't necessarily have to eat people. There's lots of other ways to get their food. They can, you can just donate blood. there's lots of ways for them to
Well,
get
there
their
could be a
nerves.
social contract, they could structure a society in a way that's not strictly speaking evil.
Yeah. The point is they've kind of perfected the art of civilization and order and in some ways happiness and joy in their own way, right? They have kind of
Because I think it's like really about the balance of life and death. Like if you do the white black, it's about like somebody has to lose, somebody has to win. Like there's like things that you can't
yeah.
avoid entirely, but you can still try to create a system where you manage all those things so that the ultimate outcome is some sort of best balance
Yeah.
of
So
things that
then
you can get.
So we've named all 5 of them there. So within the 7 pillars, we've kind of named. I guess the red one is more. Yeah, the creating purpose is kind of the only major red one, but also a little bit, and they all have a little bit in all of them, of course. But I think that's neat. So just going through that, we can see how the color wheel directly relates to every single pillar that we're doing, and that we're trying to push.
And through the multiverse of like just maybe the real multiverse of all ideas, but the multiverse at least of the planes of Magic the Gathering, you can also see the connecting stories. Because like that's how you can sort of look for it's something you're trying to do that maybe doesn't exist now. So you look into fantasy or science fiction, into where somebody was hypothesizing what it would be like if we tried that, and then
Yeah.
through these colors you can just connect it, I think, more easily and see or understand it more logically what the connection is between like a potential future. Because I think like one of the other way of looking at it is basically that the color wheel is a sort of like existential compass. It really gets into some somewhat deep philosophy, meaning that a multiverse basically is the result of all the choices that all the beings make. And if you're a being that makes choices, then you making the choices following some sort of wheel to sort of like choose direction that in which you want to go is basically navigating the multiverse. Like people are real planeswalkers navigating the real multiverse throughout making the choices. And so like it sort of gets into because I think like Magic the Gathering and the color wheel is like as close as postmodernism has to like a real existential philosophy. And the existential philosophy of the whole sort of because I think sort of fuses all of the fantasy movement pretty much, I think, and sort of like a center point of the fantasy movement because it connects literally all of it. And in that way, you basically realize that all of these hypotheticals, like the fantasy and sci-fi stories, are places to which you can get. It's just a matter of like a series of choices that you as a person or people would have to make collectively to arrive from where you are now to a different plane, literally. And it's just like it's just not through hyperdrive or whatever, it's through a sequence of choices. That's the travel method.
It's so beautiful. It really is. And the fact that we're on the cusp of creating these artificial worlds and at the cusp of completely changing what it means to be human, with this AI and with everything that's just happened this year with ChatGPT and the ability to create these beautiful pictures behind us and these beautiful ideas and stories and hopes. I'm super
really
excited.
Just waiting for an Urza.
Yeah, we just need someone to kind of bring us together in some way to inspire us and give us hope and help us create these beautiful worlds that we're inspired to think about.
Yeah, but hopefully someone who will make much fewer, many fewer how to say it. Somebody who will make fewer mistakes and unintended negative consequences than Urza did.
Absolutely. And that's, again, the beauty of these stories is we can learn from the mistakes people make in the stories. Every single story has a moral. Every good story has some moral to it. And Magic is just rich with all of these morals and lessons that we can kind of take away and that are extremely relevant to each and every one of us today in this day and age, 2023 in this year. As a final note, we just wanted to mention briefly about the Lord of the Rings latest One Ring. Anyone who's a Lord of the Rings fan, it was just opened just 2 days ago, or announced 2 days ago, where it was a one-of-a-kind ring, the one ring that was published in super expensive $60 booster packs. They made 3 million of them and sold. And a guy in Whitby, Canada, Whitby, Ontario, very close to me, just a few hour drive away, actually cracked it open. And it's worth about $3 million, I think. 2 to 3 million is probably what he's going to get for it. But it's just really fun because the whole point of this ring was bringing the Magic community together in some ways in the search for the One Ring, kind of like a Willy Wonka search for the golden ticket thing. And it was found in only about 2 weeks, so kind of exciting. But to kind of wrap up that kind of concept as far as bringing the world together for a singular purpose of saving the world. The One Ring was kind of forged in the chaos of Mount Doom to kind of control the world and almost, be an evil symbol of controlling the 20 rings. If you're familiar with Lord of the Rings lore, we won't get too deep into that. But it was there as a means of evil. And I think it's very interesting how Magic turned it into kind of a symbol of, wealth and peace and prosperity that could bring the world together in some ways, in direct opposition to the chaos and evil that it was representative of. They've turned the tables and made it a good thing.
I think this speaks to one of the funnier internal tensions within what the Wizards of the Coast are doing, because they're still a fundamentally black organization in that they just invented a way to endlessly print money for themselves. That's like, they basically are bankers who are managing a currency. That's what Magic the Gathering is. For them, it's just fun in how it's like a qualitative currency, like where you don't just have like, note has a number, but the value in it is more complex. Like something will have value because it has cultural value. So it's basically about figuring out what ideas we should print so that it would make money or have value. And it's interesting that you can then really quantify something like, so, okay, if there was one ring in the world, like what would be the price of one ring? And you're going to find out when you just print the One Ring to like the whole fantasy community. And then it literally has value in terms of even economic value. So that whole thing is sort of funny. And because like, if they overdid it, like it's sort of one of the fascinating things, like how long have they been at it? And it like their sort of artificially created money bubble hasn't imploded yet because of like Beanie Babies and all the other sort of things just appeared and went very quickly. But these Wizards of the Coast, which is so like a cool name like to call yourself, it's just like to make it even more meta. It's just like, yeah, let's literally call ourselves wizards. That would be cool. And so these wizards are just printing money, pretty much.
I have to say that there's a lot of people that definitely hate the concept of them becoming more corporate or more greedy kind of wizards, right? And I guess every organization goes through those cycles of, greed and altruism in some ways. But I have to say, I'm pretty happy with the way they've handled it. And I'm a pretty big fan, I guess, of the organization in general. And so much so that I had to be a part of it. I had to buy myself this $600 Canadian collector's booster just to go for the One Ring. I haven't opened it yet, and it's definitely not in here because it's been opened. But it was fun. And just to be a part of that was special to me. And it'll be fun just opening the cards with my kids later and seeing what they get. But the point is that even with the capitalism in there, because they have kind of these underlying messages, and because they've been so good at sharing this lore and this story and inspiring people like myself in so many different ways, I feel like they deserve it. They deserve the money and capitalist benefits that come to them from creating such a great story and a great lore-inspiring story.
Although there's also the internal tension in the Lord of the Rings franchise by itself, because it's something that's making a lot of money, but the whole message of it is very anti-greed. And it's also fascinating how that's just additional level in this case of like mixed messaging a little bit. But I just think, like if you look at it through the lens of the color wheel, it's just that like you see that even the black can have a purpose. That's not destructive. If like the black exists, like if somebody's trying to make a lot of money, but by doing that they produce a lot of actual value, then that's how like you can justify the black as being good.
Absolutely. And everything we've talked about with the Marvel universe, the Star Wars universe, the Dungeons and Dragons, all these different universes, they all add to that picture and that inspiration. The Avatar universe as well, like they're all based on the black color, but they all have so much more to offer the world to inspire us to make a better world and to inspire us to create new worlds. So I think that being said, it's a kind of a good come around for what our purpose is as humanity, is to create better and better content, create better and better experiences for us to enjoy being human. And if greed is a part of that, great. But let's just bear in mind that we'd like to kind of continue to enjoy these kinds of things. So anything that kind of would take away from our ability to create good, entertaining and fun fantasy content is probably a little more evil, a little more black than we'd want it to be. And maybe we need to add some other colors into it to balance it out a bit. So that's where I think I'm going to leave you, is find your color. But if you get too much into any one color, try to add some other colors into your concept. See
Or maybe like anybody watching, tell us what your colors is, like what your personal, like what colors describe your personality.
Leave it in the comments, please. We'd love to get some comments. We will take your comments and make whole new videos on it if you can give us something fun or something interesting to work with. Please share with us. So we're so happy that we could share a little bit of our Magic experience with you, and talk about the Phyrexia all will be one. Please help us to create a world where we can all be one in purpose and harmony in some ways.
But not like in Phyrexia.
But not like in Phyrexia. And, let's learn from the mistakes of the boring kind of control all for B1 and create a beautiful world of bounty and beauty and nature and harmony.
All colors.
All colors. Let's harmonize all the colors, not just have white, not just Elish Norn, but all the colors, and balance them all together.
And definitely not just black.
Not just black, definitely not. A little bit of everything. We need balance in our lives to make it fun and interesting. We need all 7 pillars to kind of help implement these 5 colors in ourselves, in our hearts, in our daily lives, and with the stories we share with each other. So create stories, share those things, and find your balance. And in doing so, we can save the world. So let's save the world together. Thanks, everybody.